Thank you. Good evening, my fellow Singaporeans in Jurong. Can I hear a roar from you? Roar! Thank you. Can the people at the back please come closer so we can have a good look at you? My fellow Singaporeans, it rained this evening, and what a blessing it was. Why do I say that? Because the weather is much cooler now. Very much cooler for us to sit, stand, and chat. Jurong is a location that's rich in history. It was here that the foundation stones of our industrialization program was laid. And residents of Jurong, you are part and parcel of this history. Give yourself a hand of applause. Let us tonight review the past so that we can understand how we got here today in this present mess, shall we say? In the 1970s, when Jurong was rapidly developed on an industrialization program, the aim was to create jobs for Singaporeans through foreign direct investment. And to address this shortage of skilled labor or trained labor shortages, two policy options were introduced. First, in order to produce skilled labor, the government provided for education of the youth. It was an investment. On-the-job training for young adults, it was an investment. And mobilization of the underemployed, it was an investment. What do you think the other policy option was? Tell me, what do you think the other policy option was? Immigration or emigration? Tell me. Thank you, it's immigration. There was a migration of skilled labor, and this was meant to be a temporary solution. It was meant to supplement, to address the long-term development of the Singapore labor force. So while we develop our labor into skilled labor, we take in migrants that can do the job for us over the short term. At that time, the rate of job creation was faster than what the Singaporean workforce can supply. So what did we do? We looked towards our neighbor. And we began to import foreign labor. And this was in the beginning of our industrialization program in the 1970s. When Malaysia was unable to supply sufficient workers, what did we do? We looked at the non-traditional sources. We looked at Bangladesh. We looked at Sri Lanka and Thailand. And we imported more workers. Even the late Prime Minister, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, warned of the dangers of taking too much workers. In 1971, at a National Day rally, Mr. Lee warned, if you take in too many, then instead of our values being superimposed on them, they will bring us down to their values. Because it is easier to be untidy, scruffy, dirty, antisocial, than to be disciplined, well-behaved, and a good citizen. And this is what Mr. Lee said. At that time, the development policy was for Singapore to be a dependable value for money base of production for multinationals that does not require domestic or any technology creation. Growth was export-oriented. We implemented an economic strategy of adopting and copying technology imported by foreign investors. And where did that bring us to? What did the late Mr. Goh Keng Swee said? He was full of trepidation. In 1972, at an address at the then University of Singapore, Mr. Goh said, Singapore is probably in a unique position that she is now in, dependent on the continuing supply of foreign workers to sustain our economic growth. The question we need to ask sooner or later is this: when do we stop? Or to be more precise, at what point do we stop importing foreign workers and cease to encourage foreign entrepreneurs and capital in Singapore? Why? Because of our limited land area, industrial expansion, together with the population expansion, will produce overcrowding to increasingly uncomfortable limits. Do we feel that today? I can't hear you. Do we feel that today? Yes. Thank you. So the PAP of the old is quite different from the PAP of today. The PAP of the old had foresight. People like me, my esteemed colleagues here, we were supporters of the PAP. Now what happened? Again, a quotation from Dr. Goh Keng Swee. When we select the right industries to develop in Singapore, our dependence on multinational companies will be less, and we will be able, by our own efforts, to develop export markets for products that we have the capacity to specialize in. And what is the payoff for this? The payoff, my friends, the payoff is that the scope of improvement of wage level will be larger, more sustainable, and it will depend on the resourcefulness of our salespeople, the ingenuity of our scientists and engineers, the efficiency of our management, and the skill and industry of our workers. So the problem is not in our stars, but we can depend on ourselves to pull forward. But what did we have? What did we have? We had what Dr. Goh feared most. Dr. Goh said in 1972, if our dependence on the multinational companies is complete, then we would find ourselves in a difficult situation that will emerge a growing income gap between our GNP and GDP. Now, what was Mr. Goh talking about? He is talking about the Gini coefficient, where the income gap between the Mr. Average and Mr. Rich would be so far away as what we see today, that not only is there a problem, society is split between not only Mr. Average and Mr. Rich, but also Singaporeans and foreigners, local companies, small, medium enterprises, and government-linked companies. This is not a sustainable situation for us to find ourselves in. And this was warned in 1972. In 1979, in a National Day rally, the late Mr. Lee Kuan Yew also warned. I have a responsibility to you. That's what Mr. Lee Kuan Yew said. In 10 years, can we digest so many foreigners? There will be a cultural, linguistic, and social problems. Very prescient, very forward-looking. Finally, we find ourselves in a situation like this today, in 1972, when we were a lot worse off, and now when we are a lot better as a developed nation. What was forewarned has come home. The PAP government has always defined its political legitimacy by its economic developments or achievements. And to deliver this growth, at that time, the PAP made a social compact with Singapore citizens. As what Mr. Lee Kuan Yew said, I vote for you, PAP, now you deliver. Has the government in the past 10 years delivered a better lifestyle for you? Yes or no? Since the last elections in 2011, what has happened? You find that Singapore degree holders are more likely to lose their jobs compared with any other labor segments. University graduates can no longer rely on finding a new job quickly. They find that the income growth of university graduates defied all expectations by underperforming that of non-degree holders. Now do you know why? Ministers come and say, why you do want to get the degree? Can you take and eat that? We have now a situation where the government has increased the number of jobs that demand a university degree. Do you think the position of Singapore university degree holders has improved? Yes or no? Again, yes or no? Thank you. In fact, the position of Singapore university degree holders has worsened. Do you find it strange? Or am I the only one that finds this really strange? What does this tell you? Tell me, what do you think this tells you? No. No. The question, yes, are Singaporeans forgotten? Are employers filling jobs with foreign labor instead of hiring Singaporeans? Are they doing that? We need to question the government for numbers. So despite the apparent increase in the number of university graduates, the PAP government clearly feels that the economy has an acute shortfall of the required skill set to fuel the economy. We need to ask ourselves whether the government has failed Singaporeans by making them go through a rigorous system of education that does not equip our children with the correct skill set. Is that a problem? We need to ask if Singapore now, today, is totally dependent on migrant workers for even our economy to work. We need to ask that question. Has this dependence comes at the expense of Singaporeans? There is a paradox, right? There's a paradox of education. Now we have a paradox of population. If you read the population white paper, what are the assumptions? Well, there is a statement of facts, and within that statement of facts is embedded a series of assumptions. And what are the assumptions? The assumptions are that the Singaporean population is beginning to age and decline. Without a growing, reliable workforce, Singapore will not be able to achieve economic growth. And economic growth is crucial for creating more jobs and growing wages. In an aging population, this will mean that there'll be less working Singaporeans supporting more dependent citizens. That was the preamble to the population white paper. We need to ask, what are these assumptions based on? How will these assumptions come about? And if these assumptions are true, why are the citizens angry? Think about it. Why are we so angry? This doesn't make sense at all. We must be mad. Perhaps instead we need to rephrase the question and ask the following question. Is the government instead too disconnected from Singaporeans to really know what we want in our lives? What do you think? Will we see another national conversation coming up after these elections? The fact that citizens today are living better, longer, and healthier lives is something we must celebrate and trumpet. It shows that our system is effective and it works. And with an increasing number of old people remaining able-bodied and economically productive longer, this will suggest that an aging population does not have to lead to a smaller burdened workforce. Now, this seems to contradict the government assumptions. Tonight, we will work this through to show you that increasing population growth might or can bring about short-term economic growth, but the population cannot keep growing forever, can it? Even the late Dr. Goh Keng Swee said, at what point will we become uncomfortable? How comfortable will we be? So when it comes to population growth, more is not always better. In fact, depending on population growth as a driver to economic growth is like a pyramid selling scheme to get rich at the expense of someone else. Why do we call it a pyramid selling scheme? Well, a pyramid selling scheme is an attempt to make more money for some by adding more and more people through population growth. And why do we say this? Let us examine the fundamentals. We think that the underlying strategy is to privatize the profits and socialize the costs incurred from increased population growth. The seduction is the more people is better. But let us examine this logic together. How do we add more people to increase the population? We can do it in two ways. One, we add more people through natural increase in birth rates. Two, what do? We import, we increase the number of immigrants. And where will this lead us to? We assume that this will lead to an increased demand for goods and services, for more material consumption, more borrowings, more on credit, and of course, more profits. For whom? The private companies. Remember, profits are privatized, costs are socialized. Like all get-rich-quick scheme, this seems good at the beginning, but in the long run, it is not sustainable. How will it end? Well, we are seeing how the end is coming. And the legislators today are afraid, very afraid. When the economy slows, a scheme like this will spiral downwards with higher unemployment, depressed wages, falling incomes, more people sinking into debt, more at-risk families are created, and more men, women, and children needing to depend on public assistance schemes. This type of a growth plan uses fear of population decline and aging. It goes like this: with a young and growing population, without a young and growing population, we are warned of becoming a nation facing financial ruin, a loss of national pride and prestige. Remember, the deal the PAP made, according to the words of Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, is you vote me in PAP, I deliver, right? So this is an important nexus. An aging population will cause our CPF and healthcare system to become increasingly insolvent. We will cripple our economy, undermine the well-being of Singapore, and eventually render us defenseless, or to put our sovereignty and independence under threat. We are told low birth rates, especially now, when the total fertility rate of Singaporeans is below replacement level, and this has been repeated time and time again like a national fetish. We are told that without higher fertility rates and increasing population growth, Singapore will face a bleak and uncertain future. So what's the government response to their own assumptions? The government response is a new mantra now. Have more children if you can afford it. 2 is not enough. Have 1 for mommy, have 1 for papa, and have a 3rd for Singapore. And if this is not enough, we will use immigration to increase the population growth to boost the company's bottom line. We are told continuously that without increased immigration, our economic security, long-term prosperity, and international competitiveness is under threat. Our future is now at risk. And any serious attempt to question or discuss this issue, the person asking the question is now labeled unpatriotic, intellectually inferior, or risks being labeled with other demeaning terms like xeno-something phobia. What are the social costs we pay with increased population? We will need to increase more land reclamation, cut down the whatever natural forests we have left, or live underground eventually, right? Did you agree to live underground? Were you consulted? What laws are being drafted in your name, in my name? We need to ask hard questions of the government to understand the report card that we are being presented today. Has the growth of the last decade using foreign workers depressed Singapore wages? Question number 1. Due to the massive import of cheaper immigrants, has the Singaporean core in some industries of the workforce been replaced? Question number 2. Question number 3. What measures are we taking now to ensure that the Singaporean workforce share of GDP has not been eroded? We must now grow at a pace that will provide and must provide Singaporeans jobs, challenging or otherwise, at the reasonable wage levels. What are the immediate steps we need to take? One of the steps we need to take, we need to move towards population stabilization. This will make it easier for us to address the problems of frequent train breakdowns, hospital overcrowding, rapidly rising home prices and overcrowding. In the long term, this government has failed to address how to increase worker productivity, to invest sufficiently in innovation and technological advances to create a knowledge-based creative economy that our other Asian tiger economies have done. Look at your handheld electronic devices. It's either a Korean, Chinese, or Taiwanese. While our other Asian tiger economies have created vibrant global companies, after 50 years, we have failed. We have the same time frame. We have relied on the easy path to economic growth. This government is now in a catch-22 situation. It is trapped between the society it has created and the society it wants and now desires. To end off, I will have to quote from the late Mr. Lee Kuan Yew's 2011 speech at HDB's 50th anniversary. We have grown in the last 5 years by just importing labor. Now the people feel uncomfortable. There are too many foreigners. And what is the PP response? The following year, in 2012, the late Mr. Lee Kuan Yew said at the 7th Russia-Singapore Business Forum, "We are short of workers today. We need more. Although they are coming in at a slower pace, they are coming in." This is why we need now, in order for us to move to transition to a knowledge-based economy, importing massive import of low-end foreign wage laborers stifle our productivity, innovation, and entrepreneurship that knowledge industries so desperately need. This is why now we need to reimagine and reinvent Singapore. We need to change, and change we will. Vote for change. Restore our nation. Vote Singaporeans first. Thank you.